Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Monzhang. Coming up in this edition, US President Donald Trump has deployed California National Guard troops to Los Angeles amid immigration protests. Israeli fire killed at least 12 people near 8 distribution centers in Gaza. And China is extending visa-free entry to ordinary passport holders from 4 additional Gulf Cooperation Council countries. We begin in the United States. Tensions in Los Angeles have escalated as thousands of protesters took to the streets in response to US President Donald Trump's deployment of the National Guard. Trump took extraordinary actions on Saturday by calling up 2,000 National Guard troops to quell immigration protests in Los Angeles, making rare use of federal powers and bypassing the authority of the California governor. Eddie's Tianshan has more details.
At the direction of U.S. President Donald Trump, some 300 U.S. National Guard troops deployed to Los Angeles Sunday morning, following 2 days of raids carried out by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, which met resistance and widespread protests by local residents and a number of incidents that turned violent. Dozens of suspected undocumented migrants were rounded up and arrested in their workplaces.
A huge number of our community members were taken in raids today. It's not been identified to us their names. They are not allowing attorneys in. They just told us right now that they're suspending all attorney visits, so they're denying access to us attorneys who are here to represent clients.
Families desperate to get information about their loved ones rushed to the federal detention center downtown on Saturday while protests continued.
We are here, united in community, joined in our indignation as to what has happened in our city, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces. Our community is under attack and is being terrorized. These are workers, these are fathers, these are mothers, and this has to stop.
But some incidents turned violent. In nearby Compton, a city with a high migrant population, a car was set on fire and Molotov cocktails were used against officers. The White House called it an insurrection. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth warned on X that he was ready to mobilize active duty Marines if the violence continues. Trump's move to deploy National Guard troops is a sharp departure from well-established protocols that usually leave that determination to state governors. California Governor Gavin Newsom has been harshly critical, calling the directive an overreaction designed to create a spectacle, while he's also called on the public to show restraint. This, as many in the community of migrants continue to live in fear of deportation.
That was Eddie's Tianshan reporting. For more on the chaos in Los Angeles, Pandang spoke to Ina Tangen, Senior Fellow at Taihe Institute and Chair of Asia Narratives.
Mr. Tangen, let's talk about the deployment of the National Guard this time. It's a bit extraordinary, isn't it? Because as we checked, it's the first time since 1965 that the president has sent the National Guard without a request from a governor's request. Do you think this is a little bit alarming for the U.S. constitutional establishment?
It's more than a little bit alarming. This is perhaps, hopefully, not a preview of things to come. In the past, during when he was not elected, there were an exploration of what he could do in terms of martial law. So if this is going to be coming as something that could happen, it is extremely alarming. Anytime that you're using military force within a civilian area, this is really, it's all politics, and he's using armed guards. So this is not a good look for America, nor is it going to solve the deep divisions that are now increasingly between states and the U.S. government, not just people and people.
Well, Mr. Tangen, let's look deeper into Trump's immigration policy. Now, I noticed that some observers are now saying that during Trump's first term, it's more about borders. Now, it's more about domestic arena. Do you think Trump's second term has actually moved the front line on immigration, dealing with those migrants from the border area into the U.S. inland areas? And if that's the case, do you think he's ready to face the cost of millions of jobs and the prospect of the U.S. economy?
I don't think Donald Trump really thinks about the future. I mean, he's very much about now, about making statements. I don't see a long-term plan. We haven't seen that in healthcare, despite 18 years of him saying that this was a massive problem and he was going to solve it. So in terms of the immigrants, he's just pushing the narrative because he needs to renew it. He can't be in a situation where now he's in charge of the borders. If there's infiltration on the borders, whose fault is it? His. So he's pushing the victimization narrative inside the United States and, trying to say that they are amongst us. Be afraid. These are drug dealers, rapists. It's nothing further from the truth. A migrant is 20 times less likely to commit a crime than a regular American. But they're being used as scapegoats, just like the other narratives. It is never about what Washington needs to do positively. It is about who is to blame for everything that's happened in the United States.
That was Anna Tangen, Senior Fellow at Taihe Institute, sharing his insight on the recent chaos in Los Angeles. Turning to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Russia says it is pushing into Ukraine's eastern industrial region for the first time in 3 years. The escalation comes after peace talks in Istanbul last week failed to result in a ceasefire. Audrey McAlpine with the Associated Press has more from Kyiv.
Every night around Ukraine, there are drone strikes. In this case, it was Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, as well as multiple other cities around the country. Now, we do know that both sides, Russia and Ukraine, have been ramping up their drone production. While a few months ago, the record number of drones launched into Ukraine was around in the 200s. Now, just last weekend, we saw the record number, almost 500 drones launched by Russia into Ukraine. And in the case of Kharkiv, the Ukrainian Air Force claiming that 49 drones were launched at the city and that it managed to shoot down 40 of these drones in that aerial assault. So this tells us that while both sides are ramping up production, that by the same token, Ukraine has become more advanced in shooting down these drones. And it just shows that this has become increasingly a drone war.
That was Audrey McAlpine reporting. Meanwhile, drone attacks from Ukraine have forced some airports in Moscow to close. Dasha Chernyshova has more from the Russian capital.
We have the confirmation from Rosaviatsia, Russian aviation watchdog, that there have indeed been restrictions on the air traffic introduced several times in Moscow's airspace. The closure of Zhukovsky and Domodedovo airports have indeed been taken place. The restrictions have been lifted by now, but that has been happening pretty much on a daily basis, that we are seeing the interruptions in the air traffic over the Russian capital. We all know from the Russian Ministry of Defense that the total of 131 Ukrainian drones have been shot down, including 73 outside the area of the so-called special military operation. We are hearing about some missile attacks carried out against Russia's Krasnodar region, as well as missile danger alert being introduced in the Crimea for at least 4 times. The Russian Ministry of Defense has confirmed that they are waging the military activities in Dnipropetrovsk region. This is after the Russian military say they have reached the western border of the Donetsk People's Republic. Also, that is taking place as Russia and Ukraine have started direct negotiations. So it does seem to be a very important development for the simple reason of the negotiations, so that each of the sides is trying to make more gains before any final conclusion of those talks is reached.
That was Dasha Chernyshova reporting. In the Middle East, Israeli troops killed at least 12 people and wounded others in shootings near 2 aid distribution points in Rafah, which are run by an Israeli and US-backed group. Rami Al-Maghari has more.
Actually, several incidents like this, such incident has occurred in the past period, short period, with more Palestinians are being killed or either injured by the Israeli army when they approach the site that is designated by the American institution or foundation, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, in both Rafah and Netzarim Junction, Netzarim Corridor. corridor in central Gaza Strip. What happened in Rafah is the same that happened in the Netzarim corridor, where one Palestinian was killed and 15 others injured. That, according to the humanitarian foundation, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, in a statement, it calls on the residents, on the Palestinians population here, to wait from 5 a.m. till 8 a.m. Until they are allowed to approach the site and get the needed delivered assistance or aid packages they are expecting. One Palestinian killed and 15 others injured. The people flew into the site, into the Netzarim site, before 8 o'clock, before 8 a.m., even though they were able to get some assistance, but in Netzarim, as I'm saying, so in order to get some aid, you could be vulnerable to either death or injury.
That was Rami Al-Magari reporting. Finally, in Asia, China is implementing a visa-free policy for ordinary passport holders from 4 more countries from the Gulf Cooperation Council. Ordinary passport holders from Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait and Bahrain can enter China without a visa for up to 30 days starting Monday. The visa-free policy is valid for a year. China now grants visa-free treatment to all the 6 GCC members. The United Arab Emirates and Qatar have implemented reciprocal visa-free policies with China since 2018. Insiders expect China's extension of the visa-free policy to cover all GCC members to boost the economy and relations. Nadia Swan has more from Dubai.
This is a major diplomatic move that's likely to have a significant positive impact on many sectors of the Chinese economy. China is opening its doors even wider to all 6 of the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. From June the 9th, citizens from Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait and Bahrain can travel visa-free to China, joining the UAE and Qatar, which have enjoyed the same easy access since 2018. The policy is expected to drive stronger tourism, business and cultural ties.
Well, a new policy like this is very exciting because it's the ease of access. And already we've seen a lot of exciting movement from the Road and Belt Initiative. I think we'll see a lot more visitors from Saudi and Kuwait. We've already seen that year on year with a 25% increase. And what the Chinese anticipation from all the data that we've seen, there will be a predicted increase of 40 to 50% visit from the GCC nationals.
The visa waiver allows ordinary passport holders from GCC states to stay in China for up to 30 days for tourism, business, family visits and cultural exchanges. So what effect will this have on the hospitality, aviation and retail sectors in China?
Currently, 22 direct flights a week between Saudi and China are bound to increase with the new regulations. The surge in demand is complemented by China being a halal-friendly destination and offering a variety of traditional and Islamic cultural experiences. Shanghai's Nanjing Road, Beijing's Wangfujing Street, and Chengdu's Taiko Li are big attractors. Also, with China being the world's factory, a surge in business travel will benefit China's world-class expo industry.
It's not just one-way traffic. Gulf states' national carriers working with Air China, China Eastern and China Southern are increasing direct flights from their capitals to more Chinese cities, such as Shenzhen and Hangzhou. GCC nations are hoping the move will also spark more inbound tourism from China.
This visa would make it easier for movement for people. They can start in UAE and then drive to Oman, or vice versa. They can start in Oman and then continue their trip via road to UAE and then back to their destination. And for this example, China. So for us, this ease of movement is extremely important. And then cost-wise on the travel itself makes a lot of sense.
More broadly, this policy is set to deepen connections between China and the Middle East.
That was Nadia Swan reporting. Recapping today's headlines, US President Donald Trump has deployed California National Guard troops to Los Angeles amid immigration protests. Israeli fire killed at least 12 people near 8 distribution centers in Gaza. And China is extending visa-free entry to ordinary passport holders from 4 additional Gulf Cooperation Council countries. That's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports, and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a 1-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Wang Zihang. Thank you for listening.